What's up, guys? It's MTG Matt for you, and it's the second day of spoiler season. I've got 29 new cards for you, which I'm going to cover. Really exciting stuff. Please note these cards are in no particular order, and we're just going to go through them one by one. And yeah, speaking of the new cards, I think this is going to be a really exciting expansion. Feels really good. So let's jump right into it. First card is a spoiler from Japan, I guess. That's why I have to rely on the text from Mythic Spoiler. If you look in the description, I'm going to give you a link to every card that I cover here. So the supposed name of this card is Biollante. I know it costs 2 white, black and green. It's a legendary creature, a nightmare beast. Has mutate for 4 mana, green-white, like hybrid green-white and black-black, so a total of 7 mana. You mutate for 7 mana. Has Death Touch and Lifelink, is a 5/5. And whenever this creature mutates, return any number of creature cards with total power 10 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Now, that's a big effect, right? So you have basically 2 options here with Mutate. You can play this for 5 mana as a 5/5. You get a Death Touch Lifelink, that's pretty decent, right? Gets you life, can kill some stuff. And then when you mutate this creature, for example with a cheaper mutate, you get to put all your cards back onto the battlefield, and I love that. I think now that I think about it, this card is pretty exciting, and what I really love about this expansion so far, and what you will also see with the other cards, is that we have a lot of multicolor cards, which I think is great because it encourages players to build multicolored decks, and which makes, I think, the game more exciting and feels fresher every time. So this card, Biollante, it's so post name. I think it's pretty cool. It's you can build like a Golgari deck around it with some white splash in it. And again, it's just day 2 of the spoilers. We don't know yet how well Mutate is going to work, but this looks already very promising, and I'm really excited about this card. So let's move on to the next one. It's Brokkos, Apex of Forever. So there's this Apex cycle. This is one of them. The other 2 are coming after this card. And it's a 5 mana 6/6 with Trample. Has mutate, 2 mana, Dimir hybrid colors, and 2 greens. So you can mutate for 5 mana as well. Has Trample, and you may cast Brokkos Apex from your graveyard using its mutate ability. So this again is also a great card because you have repeatable value from your graveyard. You can just mutate your creature on board, give it Trample, and you always basically have a 6/6 Trample ready, which I think is really nice. So this is also one of my favorite cards so far. I really like this. You can play this in a you can actually play this in a Golgari only deck because the mutate ability has hybrid Dimir, so you don't necessarily need the blue mana. So yeah, this seems also pretty exciting, and also a really nice card. Next up, again, supposedly Japanese card that got previewed here, called Idaro the Wandering Monster. Now note, this is obviously the Kaiju art here. This is not the actual Ikoria art. You can also see this here on the you can see this on from the title below. So that has 2 names. It's Idaro the Wandering Monster, costs 7 mana in red for an 8/8 with Trample and Haste. It's a legendary creature, dinosaur turtle. And you can cycle to 1 into red. So again, cycle is, you pay the cycle cost while this card is in your hand, you discard this card, draw a new card. And it says, when you cycle Idaro, shuffle it into your library from your graveyard. If you cycle a card named the Wandering Monster Idaro 4 times this game, put it onto the battlefield from your graveyard instead. Now, so this is how it works, right? You cycle this card 3 times, and then on the 4th time, this goes to the graveyard and then goes back to the battlefield. Let's put it this way. Initially, when I saw this card, I was super excited because I can imagine a deck where you build a deck around this. You know, you cycle, you go through your deck very fast, try to find Idaro, and then just for 2 mana, you basically draw a card and put an 8/8 Trampler with haste on the board, which is really, really good. The only concern I have about this card is that, like, the first 3 times you cycle Idaro, it shuffles back into your library, right? So this means you do not have the option, for example, let's say you have an Idaro in your opening hand, you cycle it away. If it would actually go to your graveyard, you would have options to put it back from your graveyard to your hand. You know, with black is very good at doing stuff like this, which would make this fairly easy, I think. This way, I guess, I'm not so sure if it's actually so easy to do this. Sure, the cycle cost is very low, but we are still very early into the spoilers, and as you will see later, there is another card that may support a cycle archetype. So maybe it will depend on the other cards that we get, but if a cycle archetype is like reasonable to play, I think this is an amazing card actually. Because for 2 mana draw cards, get an 8 Trampler with haste on board is amazing. So for the moment, I think this card might not be as good as it seems at first sight, but look out for this card because going into the previous season, if this gets enough support, this could be a really nice, exciting card. Alright. Next up, we have another Apex. Vadrok, Apex of Thunder. You pay blue, red, and white for 3/3 with flying and first strike. Now, just as a plain creature, that's already very good, right? 3 mana, 3/3 flying first strike. That's very decent. And you can also mutate this for a total of 4 mana. You pay 1 hybrid white blue and then 2 red. And it says whenever this creature mutates, you may cast target non-creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from a graveyard without paying this mana cost. So this would basically encourage a playstyle where you have, you know, instants and sorceries or even enchantments, and I definitely can see this card being played. The only, like, what I'm wondering about right now, we're still so early, is how would a deck built around mutate, which actually requires, I think, a lot of creatures, go well with this ability that you may cast non-creature cards from your graveyard. Because I think those two are kind of opposite to each other, but I don't know yet, we will see. And so watch out for this card. I think this is also a nice one. So far, just in general, I'm very satisfied with the Mythic Rares Wizard has put out with this expansion, because they all feel very powerful and something that you can build a deck around. So with this one, I'm also not sure yet, but watch out for this. Next up. Now this one, we have Luminous Broodmoth. 4 mana 3/4 flyer in white. And it says, whenever a creature you control without flying dies, return it to battlefield under its owner's control with flying counter on it. Now, the first time that I read this card, I was like, okay, fine, your creatures get flying, whatever. It's a 4 mana 3/4 flyer, that's not so good. But then the second time I read it, I basically was like, wait a minute. Basically, this creature says, whenever a creature you control dies, return to the battlefield under your control. Now that's really good, like even without its flying part. And I could imagine this being run maybe in like a white weenie deck, Because think about it, like on turn 3 you might have 3 to 4 creatures on board, and then on turn 4 you play this Broodmoth. If your opponent plays, for example, Shattering Sky, because you're against a control matchup, against Azorius control, all your creatures die, and all creatures except Luminous Broodmoth come back with flying. And for 4 mana, I mean, that's well worth it, right? Because, I mean, your opponent pays 4 mana to get rid of your board with Shattering Sky, you pay 4 mana to get everything back. That seems very, very powerful. So, and note that it's also, it's not a legendary creature or anything. Although I don't think that doesn't really matter, because you probably only want always just have one of these on the board. And yeah, I mean, this one is, I think this is pretty good. Just the fact, whenever a creature you control dies, return the battlefield under your control. Should have this restriction that it must not have flying, but you know, that's, you can easily account for that in your deck building. So this one also very exciting. Like, my first thought coming up is I would play this probably in a white weenie, like an aggro deck, you know, to protect your board against board wipes, and then you're good to go. So also an exciting card, watch out for this one. Next up we have Kogla, the Titan Ape. 6 mana, 7/6. Reminds me a bit of, what's this called? There's this troll from Throne of Eldraine, which also costs 6, that gives you 3 fools and cast. Whatever. So it's a legendary creature ape, and when it enters the battlefield, it fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. So you pay 6 mana, sure, but you get to remove a creature. It's always a nice effect, right? Like, playing creature, remove another creature, and it's got 6 toughness, 7 power. It's very likely to survive and kill a creature of your opponent. It says, whenever Kogla attacks, destroy target artifact or enchantment defending player controls. Now, if you recount the current meta that we are in Ferris Beyond Death, there is a number of enchantments around. Artifacts, I would say not so much, but enchantments there are a lot of. So, like, this ability is just nice value, right? And I don't think that you necessarily would play Kogla because of this ability, but it's just a nice added effect. Maybe like with Thrashing Brontodon, right? It's always nice to have options to destroy artifact or enchantments. And we don't know yet, like, how powerful the enchantments and artifacts are going to be in this expansion, so this could be very relevant. But it's just a nice add on top. And then you've got an active ability for 2 mana, 1 in the green. You return target human you control to its owner's hand, and Kogla gains indestructible until end of turn. So Kogla has a way to protect itself, as long as he have got another human on hand, on board. Also, I just realized in this moment that it's this, what's this guy called? King Kong. Of course, it's King Kong, yeah. I read this card and was like, didn't even think about it, but just looking at this art, and as long as you got another human, that makes sense, yeah. Okay, so here we've got King Kong. So making yourself indestructible is valuable. To be fair, on the turn you play it, you probably won't have enough mana left to use this ability. The thing I wonder is are the cheap humans going to be in your deck, or like available at all in this expansion, which have, for example, a nice enter the battlefield effect, which means that this ability wouldn't necessarily be a downside, but maybe even an upside. So if you know there are going to be like 1-2 mana humans which have a nice enter the battlefield effect, then this could pair well with Kogla the Titan Ape. Apart from that, even if that's not the case, maybe this is just nice in a, you know, big creature green deck, because it lets you, it's basically removal in green. So I think this is just a solid card. It has some upside potential depending on what types of humans there are going to be in the expansion. And yeah, maybe this has some upside potential too. Next up, we have Colossification. 7-mana enchantment, and this was the enchantment Wizards had, you know, semi-spoiled before, where they said there's going to be the biggest aura enchantment so far in Magic's history, and I think this is it. This is it. 7 mana in green, you enchant a creature. When it enters the battlefield, you tap the enchanted creature, and the enchanted creature gets +20/+20. So, if you put this on a Trampler, and you find a way to untap this creature, and your opponent doesn't remove it, this should win you the game, right? I mean, it's cost 7 mana, it should be game winning. And like the first thing that pops up in my hand, how to make this work, is yeah, just with Kiora. You have a Kiora on board, you cast Colossification on one of your tramples, and then you untap it, and he swings in for maybe 27 damage or something, or 25 damage. Is it going to see play? I don't think so. It's too mana heavy. It's just great to have such a thing in the game at all. Like, being able to give something +20/+20 is nice. And maybe, I don't know, there are ways to cheat out this aura. I've read in some comments that a way to view this would be Storm Herald from Pharaoh's Beyond Death, which is this card where when it enters the battlefield, you turn all auras from the graveyard to the battlefield for a turn and attach it to creatures you control. So you would basically need to play a Gruul deck where you put this into the graveyard and then also have a way to untap, which is Kiora, right? Because you can you don't need necessarily blue or Kiora. So maybe this has some value there. It's probably a meme, but something I would try out because it's probably hilarious. You play Storm Herald and then you give maybe 2 creatures +20/+20 each and just smash your opponent's face. So there's some meme potential there. I don't think there is some actual competitive potential. Next up, another Japanese spoiler. We have Keika Bat. It's a 4-mana 3/3 flyer with lifelink in black. It's a bat creature, and it can mutate for 6, 4 mana, 2 black. And when it mutates, you destroy target creature or planeswalker your opponent controls. So, and on the baseline, 4 mana 3/3 flying lifelink, I don't think it's too exciting. Like, because where would you play it? It's too slow for an aggro deck. And in a control deck, you probably want to have other options. But if you get this on the board, like, and you can repeatedly mutate this, then you can basically have repeated removal for creatures and planeswalkers of your opponent. And removing creatures and planeswalkers just, it's always going to be good, right? So I think there's some potential there. Obviously, this creature basically has, like, remove me on its head because your opponent doesn't want to have this stick on the board. And I'm not really convinced that this is going to see play, although removal is nice. So I think it depends. If you have very cheap mutate options in this game, this could be nice. Apart from that, I'm not sure if this, like, is this fast enough, right? Actually, we already had Idaro, so this means I probably missed something here. Let me just quickly search. Wait, didn't we already have Idaro? Let me just see it for a moment. Yeah, which means that I missed something here. Okay, just a second, guys. Oh yeah, we missed this guy. We actually missed this guy. Let me just adjust this. So this is the 3rd Apex. Great. Good that we didn't miss this. So, the Snapdax Apex of the Hunt, you pay 1 Mardu, so 4 mana for 3/5 with double strike. You know, 4 mana for a double strike, probably not too exciting, but Again, a nice great baseline for legendary creature Dinosaur Cat Nightmare. And it says, whenever this creature mutates, it deals 4 damage to a creature or planeswalker and opponent controls, and you gain 4 life. So, it's repeated removal on a nice body, as opposed to the card we just saw at this bat. So I think this can definitely see play. You gain life, you deal damage to creatures or planeswalker. The only downside is you don't deal damage to face, so sometimes you might have not an effect, but like the fact that you can mutate a creature to give it double strike permanently can be game ending, I think, if you put it on a big trampler. So I think actually this has a lot of potential, but I'm not so excited as with the other Apexes, because this might seem a bit clunky, I would say, given the mana cost and everything, because also mutates for 5, but I could be wrong here. So this could also be nice. Again, what I love about these mutate cards is it gives you so many options to, you know, build decks around it and really brew around it. So all these mutate cards that just seem solid at first, I would always look out for them. Next up, we have another like kaiju art spoiler. It's Phoenix Perfect Life Form. It's a 4 mana 4/4 flyer in red. You know, it's not bad. It's just solid. 4 mana 4/4 flyer. It's solid. It's a Phoenix, and you can also mutate for 4. And it says whenever this creature mutates, create a feather token. It has 1. Sacrifice. Return target Phoenix from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. And I really like this one, because this is not the only Phoenix in the game. Maybe you can build like a Phoenix tribal deck with this, and just, you know, put all your Phoenixes in the graveyard and return them to your to the battlefield tapped. And the big downside here is obviously that they return tapped, so you must have some mana open on your opponent's turn, basically, to really use this, because let's say, for example, Arc-like Phoenix has flying and haste, but it doesn't matter because the haste doesn't matter because it comes into the battlefield app, right? So I think this is a very decent Phoenix card. Like, for example, Phoenix from M20, where you return it to your hand, is really bad because you pay a lot, like way too much mana. But this enables your Phoenixes to come cheaply from the graveyard to the battlefield again, with the downside of being tapped. But I think this is viable. Maybe you don't like build an actual Phoenix deck, but build a mutate deck with, you know, like this Phoenix splash in there, and then maybe this could be viable. So I like this card. Alright, next up we've got Crystal Giant for 3 colors mana. It's an artifact creature giant. And at the beginning of your turn's combat, randomly choose one of the counters that aren't on Crystal Giant of the 10 types of counters in this set. Put a counter of the type on Crystal Giant. So first of all, I want to say that a 3 mana 3/3 in colors mana is already above average, because colors mana is the easiest to cast. You can put it into every deck, so 3 mana 3/3 is also already solid. And on top of that, the turn you put it down, because you put it down your first main phase, and then combat starts, a counter gets triggered, or a counter is put on the Crystal Giant. You already get a random keyword. Now, you can choose the keyword, but every keyword is a benefit. So, is this good? I think where this could find play is if you play it in mutate decks just as a body on which you mutate. You've got just a solid baseline, and every turn you get another keyword. So this basically helps you mutate the creature already. So I could see this being played in this way, and that's where I think in a vacuum the card is very solid and very good, but I'm not sure in which type of deck this would fit. Next up, we've got the giant Moth Cocoon, the Magic 7th egg, as Wizard had announced before. For 1 colorless mana, you get a 0/2 creature egg, and whenever this creature mutates, put a +1/+1 counter on it. I absolutely love this card. You can put it in every mutate deck, in every color type mutate deck, and it's just a nice 1-drop on which you can mutate and which can grow over time pretty nicely. So I think this is going to fit real well into those mutate decks. We still have to see from the upcoming cards how well this archetype performs. But I think Giant Moth Cocoon has definitely a place there, so I really like this card. Next up goes Sprite Dragon or Dorat Perfect Pact. It's in Izzet colors, a 1/1 flying haste. That's already really good. And whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Sprite Dragon. Really good card, comes down turn 2, can pump itself up. It has haste, so it can immediately hit face. Is also evasive because of flying, and you put this into your Beam Splitter Mage deck, and there it should go. So I really like this card. I will definitely try it out. Next up we have Titanoth Rex, 9 mana, 11/11 trample, cycling 2, and when it cycles, you put a trample card on entire creature you control. Now when I first saw this card, I thought, you know, it's not too amazing. At 9 mana, you can probably do better stuff than 11/11. However, I think that this can find its way into a Golgari deck, because it can put itself into a graveyard with cycling, and you draw a card and get some nice additional value with the trample counter, and then you cheat it out from your graveyard. So I think this can actually find its way into a Golgari deck. Next up, Umori the Collector. Now this one is really interesting. It's a companion with the requirement each non-land card in your starting deck shares a card type. And so any card type can be creature, planeswalker, instant, sorcery, you name it, right? And when end of spell you choose a card type, and spells you cast for chosen type cost 1 less to cast. So you can play this in a creature deck. If you play it in a creature deck, you can have 4 Umoris in your deck, or that is 3 Umoris and 1 is your companion. And if you do not play this in a creature deck, this can actually only become your companion, because having other Umoris in your deck would break the companion requirement. So, yeah, I really like this, because it encourages you to build decks creatively. And do I think it's competitively viable? I actually don't think so, because if you play it in a creature deck, sure, you have the advantage that you have this guaranteed all the time, but then it's basically just in Lair, and that didn't see a lot of play. Also, this can just get removed. Lair at least had Indestructible as an enchantment. And if you play it outside a Lair deck, this is just an additional card in your hand. And I don't think this will push an archetype, but I really love that it encourages you to play certain types of decks, and that's why I think this card is cool. Next up, we got Labyrinth Raptor in Rakdos colors, 2 mana, 2/2 with Menace, and whenever a creature you control with Menace becomes blocked, defending players sacrifice a creature blocking it. So, and then you can play Rakdos colors to give creatures you control with Menace +1/+0 until end of turn. So this is really nice if you manage to build like a Menace tribal black deck, because Menace means your opponent must block one of your creatures with 2 creatures, and then one of those gets sacrificed, and your opponent is left with 1 blocker. So maybe you can build like an aggressive Rakdos deck with it. Next we have Primal Empathy, an enchantment for once, in Simic colors, 3 mana, and at the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card if you control a creature with the greatest power among creatures on the battlefield. Otherwise, put a +1/+1 counter on the creature you control. So, I don't think this is very good, because if the meta becomes very creature heavy, then it's not always guaranteed that you draw a card off of this, and 3 mana for repeatable +1/+1 counter I don't think is that exciting. And even if you play against a deck that doesn't have like a lot of creatures, think about it this way. The earliest this comes down is turn 2, if you've got a Gilded Goose. And so you play this, and then on next upkeep, let's say you only have your Gilded Goose, your opponent still might have a creature with at least power 1. So I think often this trigger on its first trigger, so you play this, and then maybe 2 turns after you can actually draw a card. And I'm not sure if that's worth 3 mana, so I don't think that's very good. Next up we have Gemas the Destroyer, 4 mana in green. Mutates for 3 mana and has Reach and Trample. So 4 mana 4/4 with Reach and Trample is already solid. And then when this creature mutates, destroy target artifact or enchantment opponent controls. So I think this is a bit like a Thrashing Brontodon, so it doesn't hurt playing a 4 mana 4/4 Reach Trample, that's just solid. And then you have this added value with destroying artifact or enchantments in case you need it. Where I really like this card though is that from the cards we've seen so far, Mutate seems to be pretty expensive. And a 3 mana Mutate is actually quite cheap in that regard, so this could be like a Mutate enable. Next up we've got Grimdancer, 3 mana 3/3 in black. When it enters the battlefield, you can choose to put 2 counters on it between Menace, Death Touch, and Lifelink. Just a solid 3/3 creature with 2 nice keywords on it you can choose, and maybe this goes into your Rakdos aggressive Menace deck. Could find some play there. Next up we got Zagoth Mamba in black, 1 mana 1/1. I really like this one. Whenever this creature mutates, target creature an opponent controls gets -2/-2 until end of turn. So it's 1 drop, and then when you mutate, you can easily handle the first 1 creatures your opponent have. So I think this is really cool actually. Next up, Drannith Stinger, 2 mana 2/2. Whenever you cycle another card, Drannith Stinger deals 1 damage to each opponent, and then you can cycle itself for 1 mana. I mean, if there is a nice cycle archetype, this could be viable. Otherwise, I don't think this is very good. Next up, we've got Essence Scatter. 2 mana, you counter target creature spell. We've already got Essence Shift in standard, which is just better, so don't play this. Then we've got Pollywog Symbiote. Okay. Then we've got Pollywog Symbiote for 2 mana, 1/3 frog. Each creature spell you cast costs 1 less to cast if it has Mutate. And whenever you cast creature spell, if it has Mutate, draw a card and discard a card. I think this is a nice enable for Mutate deck, because Mutate, as we've seen, seems to be quite expensive. So this is a nice 2-drop to get those decks going. Fully gone 3 mana instant, target creature gets +3/+3 at the end of turn, and put a trample counter on it. Really bad card, not worth the mana. If you want to give a creature +3/+3, just Giant Growth it, and I don't think the trample counter is worth it. Next, Mosscoat Goriak, pack filler, nothing to say about that. They've got Lure-Tree the Spell Chaser, 3 mana 3/2 companion. This card actually got already banned for the commander format, because it says each non-Incarnate starting deck has a different name, so it's always available for commander decks. It has Flash, and when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, copy target instant or sorcery spell you control, you may choose new targets for the copy. So, in itself, I think it's a very nice solid creature, especially since it's a companion, you can always have it available for instant sorcery. On the other hand, I don't think their instant sorcery is powerful enough to, justify building a deck around this in standard, so although this is a good card, I don't think it's going to see plain standard. Then Pacifism, Hilarious Art, it's already in standard, it's good. Doesn't see a lot of play, but it's just solid. Bristling Boar, again, 4 mana 4/3, can block by more than 1 creature. It's supposed to be mutated on, but it's more of a pack filler. Then we've got Void Backnor, 8 mana 8/8 with Dash Shaft and Cycling. When you cycle it, put a death touch counter on target creature you control. Now, I've got to admit, I have no idea if you can cycle at instant speed. I don't think so. So, because this is not a combat trick, it's not very exciting. But with all these giant creatures that can cycle themselves and it's black, this could go like, you know, in a Golgari deck to cheat it out. That's why now this one is interesting. It's an enchantment for white, black, and green. And whenever a non-token creature you control dies, put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. Then return a creature card with lesser converted mana cost than the creature that died from your graveyard to your hand. So it enables a graveyard type of deck. It mills, it puts more cards into your graveyard, and you get some value back every time a creature you control dies. And you actually want creatures to die in a Golgari graveyard deck. So I think this card is very, very, very interesting. And then you can sacrifice it for 1 mana to gain life equal to the greatest converted mana cost among creatures you control. I think the fact that it can sacrifice itself is more important than the actual effect, because probably at a certain time in the game you want to stop milling yourself so you don't, deck yourself. And just that it can destroy itself and has this nice effect makes this, I think, a viable card. Then 5 mana, 5/4, Voracious Greatshark with Flash. It enters the battlefield, counter target artifact creature spell. I think it's way too expensive for what it does. And in decks where you want to counter your opponent's spells, it's too expensive. And the effect is too restricted. Then we've got Auspicious Starrix. 5 mana, 6/6, can mutate for 6. And when this creature mutates, you exile the exile cards from the top of your library until you exile X permanent cards, where X is the number of times this creature has mutated. Put those permanent cards onto the battlefield. Now, you can easily build a deck around this if you simply cut instant sources completely from your deck. Then you have only permanents in your deck, which means I would say on average, if you're at 6 mana and you mutate this onto another creature, the creature will already have mutated like twice. So you play this, you get a 6/6, and then you get 3 more permanents on the battlefield, which can be lands, which would be, I think, the low roll, but the high roll is if you put more creatures on the battlefield, right? So in that case, I think this is really cool, and I think this can see playing a mutate deck. And then we've got Generous Enforcer for white and black, a 2/3 human soldier, which says legendary humans you control have indestructible, which I don't think is relevant at all in standard. Maybe there will be some nice legendary humans still come in this expansion, we don't know. And then for 4 mana, you exile target card from a graveyard. If it was a creature card, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. So in itself, it's basically a 2/3 who can make more soldiers, because I think the passive is not relevant. So I don't think this is a good card. Alright, so next up we have Back for More. It's 6 mana in Golgari cards for an instant. It says return target creature card from graveyard to the battlefield, and when you do it, fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. So, first of all, in standard right now, you basically have 2 cards, 2 sorcery type cards, I would say, with which you can return creatures from your graveyard to the battlefield. And those cost 4 mana and 5 mana respectively. So here you pay 6 mana. You pay, first of all, you pay 4 mana for this being an instant, which is a lot better. And then secondly, you pay more mana because you also get the creature that enters the battlefield to fight another creature. So it's combined removal. It's quite expensive, but I think in a Golgari type deck, you should have enough resources available to probably utilize this. So I wouldn't write this card off, especially because it's an instant, and I think this has some potential. Next up we have Blood Curdle. It's a 4 mana instant, destroy target creature, put a menace counter on a creature you control. So 4 mana removal plus menace, I don't think it's that good. Menace is not that important, and you rather play just like a like this knight that has the adventure of killing a creature or planeswalker. Next up, we've got Shredded Sails. 2-mana instant in red. Choose 1, destroy target artifact, or it deals 4 damage to card creature with flying. And you can also cycle it. So, this is like a typical sideboard card. Some nice utility in red if you want to get rid of an artifact or flying creatures, and if you don't need it in a situation, you can just cycle it. And last card for today is Archipelagore. 7 mana, 7/7 Leviathan with Mutate 6. And whenever this creature mutates, tap up to X creatures, where X is the number of times this creature has mutated. Those creatures don't untap during their controller's next untap step. Way too expensive, the effect is too minor. I don't think this is good. So there you go, these have been the card spoilers for today. Stay tuned for more card reveals from my side, and I see you guys on next video.